All right, let's go on to chapter 15. We had been seated but a few moments when a man, whom we judged to be about 35, appeared suddenly in the room. He was introduced to us, and all shook hands with him. We were all spellbound at his appearance, for we had imagined that he would be very old. He was above the medium height, with rugged features, but the kindliest face I had ever looked upon. There was a strength of character back of every move. His whole being emanated a light that was beyond our power of comprehension. Before we were seated, Emil, Jast, and the two strangers clasped hands in the center of the room and stood in perfect silence for a few moments. Then all were seated, and the one who had appeared in the room so suddenly began by saying, You have asked for this interview in order to get a better understanding of the documents that have been read and interpreted for you. I will say that these records were made and kept by me, and those referring to that great soul, John the Baptist, which seemed to surprise you so greatly, are actually occurrences of the time he was with us here. These records show that he was a man of wide knowledge and wonderful intellect. He perceived that our teaching was true, but he apparently never came to the actual realization, or had he done so, he would have never have seen death. I have sat in this room and heard John and my father converse, and it was here that he received much of his teaching. It was here that father passed on and took his body with him, and John beheld his passing. There are none of my family on father's or mother's side that have not taken their bodies with them in passing. This passing means the perfecting of the body spiritually until one becomes so conscious of the deep spiritual meaning of life or God that one sees life as God sees it. Then one is privileged to receive the highest teaching, and from this realm one is able to help all. We never descend from this realm, for those who have reached this place never wish to descend. They know that life is all progress, and going forward there is no turning back, and none wish to do so. All are reaching out to help those that are striving for more light, and the messages that we are continually sending out into the universal are being interpreted by God's children who are receptive in every part of the earth today. This is the prime object of reaching this realm or state of consciousness, where we are able to help all in some way. We can and do talk with and instruct those who are receptive and who raise their consciousness either through their own efforts or the assistance of another. Another cannot do the work for you, nor can another carry you along indefinitely. You must decide to do the work for yourself, then do it. Then you are free and self-reliant. When all come into the consciousness, as Jesus did, that the body is a spiritual body and indestructible, and hold themselves in this consciousness, then we shall be able to communicate with all and give out the teaching we have received to a greater number. We are privileged to know that all can accomplish all that we have accomplished, and thereby solve every problem of life. And that which has been looked upon as difficult and mysterious will be found simple. I do not seem any different to you from any other man that you meet every day, nor do I see any difference in you. We said we thought we could see something far finer in him. That is only the mortal as compared with the immortal of man. If you would only look for the God quality and not make any comparison, you would see every human being as you see me, or by looking for the Christ in every face, you would bring forth that Christ or God quality in all. We make no comparisons. We see only the Christ or God quality in all at all times, and in that way, we are out of your vision. We see perfection or have perfect vision, while you see imperfection or have imperfect vision. Until you are in contact with someone who is able to instruct you, till you can raise your consciousness where you can see and converse with us, as you are now doing, our teaching seems only inspirational in nature. It is not inspiration when we are conversing or attempting to converse with one. This is only in the nature of instruction, leading to the point where the true inspiration can be received. It is inspiration only when it comes direct from God and you let God express through you. Then you are with us. An ideal image of the flower in minutest detail is within the seed and must expand, multiply, unfold, and be wrought into the perfect flower by hourly preparation. When this inner image is complete, in minutest detail, the flower comes forth beautiful. Just so God holds the ideal image of every child in mind, perfect image through which he wishes to express. We can get more out of this ideal way of expression than the flower does if we will but let God express through us in the ideal way he has conceived for us. It is only when we take things into our own hands that the problems and difficulties begin. This is not for one or a few, this is for all. It has been shown us that we are not different from you. It is a difference in understanding, that is all. So all the different isms, cults, and creeds, all the different angles of all beliefs are all good, for they will eventually lead their followers to the realization that underneath all, there is a deep factor of actuality that has been missed, a deep something that has not been contacted, or they have failed to contact that which rightly belongs to them, which they can and should rightfully possess. We see it as the very thing that will eventually drive man to possess all. The very fact that man knows there is something to possess which can be possessed, and which he has not, will goad him on until he has it. It is in this way every step in advance is made in all things. The idea is first pressed out from God's into man's consciousness, and he sees there is something ahead if he will but go on. Here man usually blunders and fails to recognize the source from which the idea came, but thinks that it came wholly from within himself. He gets away from God, and instead of letting God express through him the perfection God sees for him, he goes on and expresses in his own way and brings forth imperfectly the idea which should be perfectly wrought or manifest. If he should but realize that every idea is a direct, perfect expression from God, and as soon as this idea comes to him, he would immediately make it his ideal to be expressed from God. Then take his mortal hands off and let God express through him the perfect way. This ideal would come forth perfect. Here we must realize that God is above the mortal, and the mortal cannot help in any way. In this way, man would learn in a short time to express perfection. The one great thing man must learn is to get forever through and out of the psychic or mind forces and express directly from God. All psychic forces are created wholly by man, and they are likely to mislead. All right, let's keep going. Here the talk ended, and the understanding that all should meet. Here the talk ended with the understanding that all should meet at breakfast. We were up early next morning and ready for breakfast at 6:30. As we left our lodging, we met our friends going in the same direction, walking along and conversing the same as ordinary mortals. They greeted us, and we voiced our surprise at meeting them in this way. The reply was, "We are only men the same as you. Why do you persist in looking upon us as different? We are in no way different from you. We have only developed our God-given powers to a greater extent than you." When then asked, "Why can we not do the works that we have seen you do?" they answered, Why do not all we contact follow on and do the works? We cannot and do not wish to force our way upon anyone. All are free to live and go the way as they wish to go. We try only to show the easy and simple way, the way we have tried and found very satisfactory. We went to breakfast, and the conversation drifted into the ordinary, everyday occurrences. I became lost in wonder. Here were four men sitting opposite us at the table. There was one that had lived upon this earth about 1,000 years. He had so perfected his body that he was able to take it with him wherever he desired. His body still retained the buoyancy and youth of a man of 35 years, and this perfection had been completed about 2,000 years. Next to him sat a man that was the fifth in line or regular descent of the family first mentioned. The second had lived upon this earth for more than 700 years, and his body did not appear to be a day over 40. They were able to converse with us the same as any other men would converse. There was Emil, who had lived for over 500 years and appeared to be about 40, and Jast, who was about 40 and appeared to be about that age. All were conversing together like brothers, with not a hint of superiority, all kindly, simple, and yet well-grounded and logical in every word uttered, with no trace of the mystical or mysterious about them, just plain humans in daily intercourse with each other. Still, I could scarcely realize that it was not all a dream. After breakfast, when we arose from the table, one of my associates started to pay for the meal. Emil said, "You are our guests here," and held out to the lady in attendance what we thought was an empty hand. But when we looked a second time, there was just the amount of money necessary to pay the bill. We found that our friends did not carry money with them, neither did they depend on the others for their supply. When money was needed, it was right at hand, created from the universal. We walked out of the house, and the man that was with the number 5 party shook hands with us, saying that he must return to his party, and disappeared. We made a note of the time of his disappearance, and afterwards found that he appeared with his party within 10 minutes after he had left us. We spent the day with Emil, Jas, and our friend of the records, as we called him, and wandering over the village and the countryside, our friend recounting in detail many instances which happened in the time of John's sojourn of 12 years in the village. In fact, so vividly were these instances brought to our minds that it seems as if we were back in the dim past, walking and talking with this great soul who, to us before this, had seemed but a mythical character conjured from the minds of those who wished to mystify. From that day on, John the Baptist had been a real living character, so real to me, it seems as if I can now actually see him walking the streets of the village and countryside and receiving instruction of those great souls about him, the same as we walked the streets of the village and countryside that day, yet not able to grasp the fundamental truth of it all. After tramping all day, listening to the most interesting historical occurrences and hearing records read and translated on the very spot where the incidents took place thousands of years before, we returned to the village just before dark, thoroughly tired. The 3 friends who were with us and had walked every step of the way as we had walked were not showing the least sign of fatigue or weariness, whereas we were begrimed, dust laden, and perspiring. They were cool and at ease. Their garments were as white as flesh and spotless as when we started out in the morning. We had noted during all our journeys with these people that none of their clothing became soiled. We had remarked about this a great many times, but had received no reply until this evening, when in an answer to a remark made, our friend of the record said, "This may seem remarkable to you, but it seems far more remarkable to us that one speck of God's created substance adheres to another of God's creations where it is not wanted and where it does not belong. With the right concept, this could not happen, for no part of God's substance can be misplaced or placed where it is not wanted." Then in an instant, we realized that our clothing and bodies were as clean as theirs were. The transformation, for to us it was a transformation, had taken place instantly to all three alike while we stood there. All fatigue left us, and we were as refreshed as though we had arisen from bed and had our morning bath. Here was the answer to all our questions. I believe we were retired that night with the deepest feeling of peace we had experienced at any time thus far throughout our sojourn with these people. All our feeling of awe was fast giving place to the deepest love for these simple, kindly hearts that were doing so much for the benefit of mankind, or their brothers, as they call them. We began to look upon them as brothers. They took no credit upon themselves, saying it was God expressing through them. Of myself I can do nothing. The Father that dwelleth within me, he doeth the works.